foster care and unparalleled journey.
Strength for the powerless. Courage for the fearful. Hope and healing for wounded hearts.
If you'd like to share your story or find our socials, including Patreon, go to fostercarenation.com. Hi, and welcome back to Foster Care, an Unparalleled Journey with Jason.
And Amanda.
And today we have Ryan Greenwood with us. I met Ryan in Dad's group, and come to find out we have more than a couple things in common. Ryan has fostered as well as does a podcast. So if you guys are listening to this, I'm going to guess that you might be listening to more than one podcast. So go over and check out Remix the Dad with Ryan Greenwood. Check his podcast out. I'm sure he would appreciate somebody listening in over there and giving him some feedback and talking to him a little bit. But today we're going to be here talking about kids. How you doing today, Ryan?
Man, I'm good. Thank you. And thanks so much for having me on. And I'm honored to be here, man.
Hey, we're glad to have you. I reached out here a while back on Facebook looking for people who had fostered kids or had some experience with foster or adoption. And you hit me back and I went, I didn't know that Ryan fostered anybody. Then we talked a little bit and you told me that you had your great niece?
Yes, my great niece. Yes, sir.
All right. Now, first off, do some relationship math for me. What is a great niece? How does that meet in?
Well, all my nieces and nephews are great. But that's a little side joke. But it's my sister's daughter's daughter.
Okay.
So
we have a family full of kids who are connected in strange ways. One little boy that calls me dad was my wife's half-sister's little boy. Now, I don't know what that makes him to me, other than a monkey's uncle, but,
awesome.
Well, now it makes sense, Dad.
Yeah, now it's just dad, But yeah, the relationship stuff in today's world is so much more complicated a lot of times. So yeah, that's why I'm asking. I'm like, you said great niece, and I'm not certain what that is. So
Yeah, she calls me either uncle or dad sometimes. It just depends on how long we've been in the same room together, because sometimes it's like, oh, hey, uncle, how's it going? But then once we spend more time together, then it's, oh, dad. And I don't correct her. I just let it happen.
I hear you, man. That's kind of what we learned the hard way when we first got into fostering, is that by the end of day 1, she is mom. By the end of day 2, I am dad. Yeah, maybe day 3. I think the face and the beard maybe makes some of them hold off till day 3, and then we have some that never get around to it. It just kind of comes and it goes, and that's one of those fluid things in a kid's mind that I don't always push on. But so how did your great niece come to stay with you?
Well, there was some issues going on with her mom, and a lot of time where her mom was getting into some trouble or had other priorities going on, and social services had gotten involved, and they had contacted us. And we also told my parents too. We're like, hey, well, if anything happens, we'll take Bug with us. That's her nickname. We'll take Bug. And we also told social services that, and so they were like, okay, great. So right around my biological daughter's birthday, they're like, okay, come pick up her stuff. So that's how we got her.
So you have a one biological daughter already?
Yes.
And how old is she?
Bug, she's 10 months younger than my daughter, who is now about 6.5.
Okay, so she had somebody about her age to play with and to fight with, just like a sibling.
Yeah, man, they were sorority sisters, bro. They were
Really?
partners in crime. Yeah, and there's still that bond till this day. They still love each other, and they always ask, "Hey, where?" And my daughter, her nickname is Llama, so where's Llama, and then where's Bug? So it kind of goes back and forth.
Sounds like you have a farm issue going on out there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
How long have you and your wife been married?
Well, we've been married since 2011, so 9 years,
I
if my
assume
math is correct.
get you in trouble there if I ain't careful. So
Yeah.
I assume she was on board with the whole idea of taking Bug in as a foster.
Oh yeah, she loves Bug, and she loves Bug's two other sisters as well, and she has a huge heart for these little girls, and like we were told from the courts that, because they were telling us one thing, they were telling my niece another thing, and we thought we were actually going to do a finalized adoption with Bug, but that didn't end up happening. But yeah, she still has that emotional connection with her and her sisters. So
Wow. So how old were her sisters?
I think one of them is about 4, and the other one's 2. I could be wrong, but they're around that. They're real close in age.
Okay. So were they? Let's see. We're going back to this. You said this all happened back in 2017, right? So that
Yes, that's right.
were they born yet?
Yeah. The youngest, she was born. Okay, so yeah, the youngest was born in 17. So the youngest is almost 3. So
Okay. So now where did they go? Did they stay with their mom or did they go somewhere else?
well, yeah, Bug went with us. The middle child, she went with her grandma on the father's side, and then the youngest actually went with my pastor and his wife for about a year.
Oh wow, okay.
So, but we all were working together to try and keep the girls to have a relationship,
That's so
and
important.
and the and the girls know who their sisters are and all that, and which yeah, we thought was very, very important.
Absolutely. That's one of those pieces of the foster care system that is talked about a lot, and that's the that sense of felt permanency. That's a huge thing, and keeping siblings together is always a goal whenever we're talking about foster placements. So that's great that you guys were able to work together, and whether or not you guys were close. I mean, I don't know what your relationship with the dad's parents were, but I know oftentimes inside of families there can be some in-law type issues. But if everybody can step their feelings aside enough to put a kid at the forefront of the situation, that I mean that's the best thing for them. So kudos to you guys for stepping out and doing that.
Yeah, there was definitely some friction in between family members, and I tried keeping my the neutral ground, the good ground with the grandma, because she was a little bit hard headed sometimes, but I always tried to be like, all right, it's not about us, it's for these kids, and also kind of had to be the mediator between. I'm sorry, let me close this. I had to be the mediator for like my parents, my sister, and the grandma, because there was definitely some, and also pastor's wife, there was some tension and some disconnect in there, and a lot of miscommunication, a lot of misunderstanding. And pretty much had to say it's for the kids. Grow up, it's for the kids.
Yeah, that can be a challenging thing to have to tell adults that, though, sometimes, that, hey, you guys are being a little bit childish. Let's focus on what's important. And oftentimes ego gets in the way.
Very much so.
So when she came into your house, how old was she?
She was about two and a half, I believe.
Okay. 2-3-year-olds, they can be challenging. Especially
they're some of the ruthless people in the world, man.
You haven't found teen years yet. That, to be fair and honest, that's kind of the age group my wife and I have focused on with our foster journey, because she'll tell you it's because I can be a 3-year-old at the drop of a hat. And I'll tell you it's probably true. If you give me the choice of a room of 32-year-olds or one teenager, give me the 2-year-olds. Let's go. We'll have an army. We'll be assaulting an ice cream stand in no time. But that's a world. But what kind of extra friction did that bring into the house? Because you already had it. Your daughter was close to that age already, so I can only imagine that had to bring some new struggles and challenges, especially with that whole not having a firm grasp on what the long-term goal was. What did that bring into your house?
It brought a lot of uncertainty between me and my wife. Not really our relationship, but just, well, what do we do next? How do we handle this situation? Lot of heartache, because it like I said, it did put a big disconnect between me and my family. And there was a lot of bitterness and frustration, but then also just kind of on the lighter side, like, instead of just one little toddler, 3-year-old, we had two. And I'd get home from work and I'd tell the girls, because we were living in an apartment at this time, okay, I have to pee. Go straight up the stairs, go to the door, and get your butts inside. You know how toddlers are. They like dogs when they see squirrels. Shiny, woo! So I ended up peeing my pants a few times on the stairs. So that was a struggle for me. But no, it definitely there was some tension and some heartache, and it was hard. It was definitely a hard time.
I was gonna say, how was it for your daughter having to share mom and dad now?
She was cool with it for about 2 weeks, and then she was like, "When is Bug getting out of here?" But after a little while, she loved it. Like, yeah, they did fight, but then they also they grew that bond together, and they shared a room, and when she left, our daughter asked, "Well, when is Bug coming back?" And we're just like, "Well, she's back with her mommy now, and she can come stay weekend, because she comes and stays weekends with us a lot." But yeah, at first it was tough on her, just kind of like, all right, well, why are you here? Why it's kind of like when you bring another dog in the house, it's like, wait, what are you doing here? I like you at the dog park, but why are you here at my house now?
Absolutely, we go through that quite a bit here.
We go through the other side of it, though. We have 6 kids in the house, and the little girl staying with us right now, she was an only child. She's never been in a home with this many kids, so she's kind of going through the opposite side of it.
She's like, "Why are you here?"
Yeah.
It's a little overwhelming to her sometimes, but we're making our way. But I was going to touch on, so you still get to visit with Bug, and she still gets to come for weekends and things like that?
Oh yeah. We before all this Corona, whatever you want to call it, had gone on, yeah, we had her probably at least once a month since I can remember, for a weekend. She comes and stays with us. She'll go down to southern Colorado and stay with our in-laws with us. She'll go camping. She gets to go experience pretty cool things with us. So, and we want that for her and her sisters. And her sisters are old enough now where after things kind of lighten up with all this pandemic stuff, we'll be able to take them too and go do some fun things.
Well, that's really awesome, because I know sometimes dealing with families, and when families have to get involved and, they step up for kids, sometimes that doesn't sit too well with the adults that are in the situation. And sometimes they take that out on kids, and, they use kids as punishment and as weapons, oh, well, you can't see so-and-so now because you did this. But it sounds like you guys have a pretty decent grasp of all that.
Well, yeah, there for a little bit, it kind of seemed like that was going to happen. But my niece, the mom, her priorities changed. I don't know the full story. I can't really get into a lot of detail of what she's going through right now. But we don't go through her. We go through my sister, the grandma Bug. We go to her, or even my mom sometimes, to get hold of Bug and the other two girls, because I honestly really don't know how to get a hold of the mom. So.
Well, pretty much every child who comes into foster care because of some sort of trauma in their house. Can you talk a little bit about, maybe some of the things the challenges that came out of her traumas when she came to your house?
Okay. I think it was more of like a neglect and just a bad attitude, because her mom would prioritize herself and partying over taking care of the situation to help her raise these kids. And I think also the dad, he wasn't around, never been around, maybe seen her just less than a handful of times in her whole life. So it was just kind of an abandonment issue, and kind of challenging what can I get away with, just challenging the authority of adults and caregivers. But as we worked with her and we disciplined her and gave her like little kid chores, gave her stuff to do, so she can stay disciplined and kind of stay in line. I think really helped her out, because now she loves to help. She loves to serve. Her attitude is, okay, I see people in help, or I see people in need, I need to help. And just the love that she has, I think that time with us, that really grew inside of her. And she knows who, not just my wife and I and our daughter, but also the other people who were involved in this whole situation. She knows the people who worked hard and tried to make a life for her, because we went on I actually seen her on Mother's Day, and she's like, "Uncle, can we go for a walk real quick?" And she's 5.5, almost 6. I was like, okay. And she's telling me all this stuff, and I'm like, wow. One, she's telling me this, and she trusts me enough to tell me this, And two, just the fact that she can articulate what's going on right now in her mind, it was just a powerful thing. So yeah, just that nervous little twitchy little girl that we got originally is now this almost 6-year-old who is smart, loving, compassionate, and has a serving heart. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's exactly it. You know, kids go through trauma and they come into our homes, and then we have to understand that trauma. And if we're lucky, we can turn it around and create something beautiful out of it. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened in your home. She found some beauty in serving people.
Yeah. And when she, and even when we get her back now, like on the weekends and stuff, we notice these little characteristics and these little tics that she has. Like she'll pick at her lip, or she'll still kind of challenge you to see where you're at. Are you gonna let her get away with it? Are you gonna? So we still see that, but I believe that she's doing that challenging just to kind of see, hey, is it legit? Do you kind of a form of love, a reaching out for love? Does that make sense?
It definitely does. And I mean, the other thing is in her mind, she's 6 now. And when she came to stay with you guys, she was like 2.5, 3 years old. You know, she's still probably working through some of that, you know, okay, is this home? Is this not home? Where do I fit in now? You know, because the rules have changed. She's no longer living with you, you know, so does that change your guys' relationship?
Yeah. And yeah, that's a great point. I definitely, I've let off those reins and stuff, but when it is time, because whenever our family's around, there's a lot of chiefs calling the shots and hey, rah, 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 rah. And it's hard for me and my wife to be like, okay, well, she is our responsibility. She's our loved one, but right now she doesn't need all these people yelling at her. But when the time comes for like either discipline or whatnot, then that's when we step in. And I tell her all the time too. I was like, hey, you're strong, you're beautiful, but no whining. It's okay to cry though. And if you ever need me, you know where to find us. You can pick up your grandma's or your great grandma's phone and call me. Hop on and call me. If ever you need us, me and your aunt, we're here for you. So just letting her know that not only reassures her, but also reassures me that, hey, this little girl, she's something special.
I don't know if you know anything about it, if you've heard about it, but one of the things I've heard a lot about in current vernacular around kids is the trust-based relational intervention, which it was, I think, mostly started by a gal by the name of Karen Purvis, but it's learning to deal with traumas and realizing when you're dealing with a trauma response versus dealing with a response of a kid just being a kid. And quite frankly, challenging some authority. If you have a toddler that doesn't do that, I need you to put that in a bottle and send it to me. Because I don't know how to make toddlers not do that. Yeah. But, but when you're dealing with kids who've been through trauma, a lot of times you'll see things that will look to you like it's a behavior that they're choosing to do something. But oftentimes it's just that amygdala, I'll get it out, that amygdala response that says, hey, something's different and scary here, and I'm going to try and control the situation. So it sounds to me like she's doing really well. How are you guys? I mean, I know that from personal experience, we've had a couple of kids who came through our house that were really close, that were really like, for a couple of them, we actually thought that they might stay long term, and it ended up they went back to their home, which is the best thing for them. But it doesn't mean that we're not still at some point, sad, and we didn't have to deal with that. and maybe even deal with some of our own trauma response in that as well. I'm certain when she went back home, that had to really bother you guys a bit. I mean, it always does. How did that affect you when she went home?
Well, for me, it was, oh my gosh. Like I said earlier, it affected my relationship with me, my sister, and also my parents. And because there was just so much stuff going on back and forth between the courts and the other people who fostered. And I was in such a situation, like, there for a while. I couldn't be around my parents. I couldn't be around my sister. I felt like even I couldn't go around church because I was so embarrassed about what the kid's mom was doing, because I was so close, because it's my niece, my oldest niece. I was so embarrassed about what was going on, and I'm just hitting the tip of the iceberg on this, but I couldn't. I felt like I was judged. I felt like I was embarrassed. I felt like shameful and all this stuff, and I was just worn out. And I was sad when she went back, and my wife, she was sad. Because we love this little girl so much, and we do anything for her, and just a lot of the uncertainty that what was going on, and her mom still was repeating those patterns, still is repeating some of those patterns. But we were so busy for so long that we really didn't get a chance to grieve the loss of her not being in our home, and which led to me drinking a little bit more, diving into some other work, and my wife even too diving into projects and not talking about some of this stuff. And praise God that I'm talking to you guys today, because I feel like it's time to break that trauma, break that silence in my heart, in my mind, and also and just kind of a therapy, man. It was tough.
Yeah, that part is always difficult. You mentioned something there that I think is important to touch on, and that's the fact that there is grief around that. And not only is it okay that there's grief around it, it's probably not okay if there's not some level of that. I say that, but there are a couple of kids who left our house that when they left, we kind of had a bit of a sigh of relief. And I mean, honestly, because some kids are more challenging than others. And there's one particular boy that stayed with us. He was a teen, and he had a lot of trauma, stuff he never talked about. And after he left, I mean, that was like our house took a collective sigh. It was just such a challenge with him in our home. And so when he left, I mean, yeah, I guess on one level that there's pieces of that we probably missed a little bit, trying to really help a kid who'd been in some horrible situations. Again, he never exactly spoke about it, but you could tell that it was there. But at the same time, we've had some kids who are really close, who were similar to the situation you're talking about, you know, not necessarily family, but, you know, we had two little kids who stayed for a year and a half, and one little guy we kept from the time he was just a few days old up until his first birthday almost. And, you know, when they leave, that's a grief, you know, that's, you know, you're losing a piece of your household. It changes who you are. And that's important to be able to take that time to set aside and spend some time grieving and do that work, because without it, I mean, you end up with those undealt with things, and man, that's not good for you or your family.
Yeah. It reminded me, because my pastor and his wife, they had the youngest like pretty much right when she was born, and they only thought that, oh, maybe a month or two, but they ended up having her for, I think, a little over a year. I could be wrong, but I think it was a little over a year, and just the attachment that they had was a beautiful attachment, and they love that little girl. And I send them pictures every once in a while, just to show her progress and stuff. But yeah, just like us, they had to go through that time where they had to kind of step back, but then also grieve. And I think that's why what you guys are doing is so awesome, is because I'm not as such in depth as you guys, but I've got a little bit of a taste. And then also my brother and sister-in-law, my wife's side, they just adopted a little boy, and it just warms my heart that people are doing this for kids, man. Whether it's just foster for a little bit or just straight up adopt, man, it's beautiful.
Well, let me ask you this question, because now that you've been through that trauma and you felt that grief that comes afterwards, would you, looking back now, if you had this view to look back on, would you have chose to do it again?
Absolutely.
What makes you say? What makes you decide that that's an absolutely answer?
Yes, I'd with that situation, I would definitely do it again, but I would probably do a couple things differently and voice my opinion a little bit sooner than what I did to my family, and then also the court system.
Yeah, learn to deal with the court system. That's a whole nother animal, because those guys, the courts, I mean, to their credit, they're dealing with how many different kids and how many different situations. And a lot of it comes down to the personal philosophy of the judge and what they believe is important. So that's all a big challenge, in learning how to be able to speak up there and sometimes speak forcefully without getting thrown out of the courtroom. We've seen a few people who spoke a little more forcefully than was wise for them. But we've always had good judges, and the judges we've had in our area, I saw one of them, actually, a couple lawyers were misbehaving in court. And I believe as he was bouncing off the bench, he told them that if they said another word to each other and didn't talk solely to him like they were supposed to, like grown-up attorneys are supposed to do, that they were going to go visit his jail as for contempt of court, and he would be back next week to hear their cases, because he was very serious about kids, and he was serious about how he handled things, and he didn't let things devolve in his courtroom. So it was really a great experience working with Judge Frowley. He was just a heck of a guy, and I would not have picked a different judge, I don't think, to have dealt with as much as we did over the years. He's retired now, and we haven't actually had an opportunity to meet the judge we have in our county at this point, but I hear good things, so I'm hopeful. But learning to deal with the court system and learn to deal with children's division, because so much of it is about dealing with the personalities there, the caseworkers and your lawyers and attorneys and guardian ad litems, and so much of that is determined by how your relationship with them goes and how they see you. Because if they see you as somebody who's just mad at the bio parent, in your case, your niece, then they're probably going to put a little less weight behind your voice, because when you are just hollering about how horrible they are and how, what they're doing horrible things, and it becomes a monotonous thing. But when they can see that your true care and intention is for the best interest of that child, that usually speaks volumes to them, and they take you so much more seriously. Did you see that same thing in your court system out there?
With the judge and the Lawadenda, whatever they're called, I forgot. Yeah. With them, I saw it. They were more understanding, because pretty much I let my niece kind of speak for herself, her actions speak for herself. And like I said earlier, I told them it's for the kids. It's for the kids. But the social worker that we had, she was flipping her story, flipping the coin, just because she'd tell all of us one thing, but then she'd tell the mom another thing, and it was just getting really frustrating. And so I finally, in front of everybody, judged the guardian denim, everybody. I called her out, and I was like, look, you're sharing different stories, different versions of what's going on in reality. What is going on? Yes, my niece is going through all this stuff, trying like the parenting classes and the UAs and all this and this. But then also you're telling these people with these beautiful children, plan for adoption. You're going to adopt. Oh, now, no, it's going to happen. She's going to be yours. And they kept doing that double-sided sword. And I just had to say, look, what's going on? Is she coming with us? Are the other two going with them? Or, and in Colorado, it's a what's the phrase, like it's reunification or reunite, or it's that kind of state here. And I was like, well, what are you gonna do? Either take her back, or you're gonna give her back to her mom, or let us sign the papers right now, because this is ridiculous. This lady, she's pretty much putting us on that Ferris wheel or the merry-go-round and saying, here's some ice cream, and then taking it away. Here's some ice cream, taking it away. And that's pretty much what she was doing. And my wife and I straight up had enough of it. So after I called them out, she was like, well, we'll work on getting her back with her mom. And I was like, no, we need to do it. We need to do right now. Like, there's no, we're going to reschedule later. Yeah, we can have meetings and all that other stuff. But all we're doing is having meetings about planning meetings and stuff. So, so they were like, okay, well, I think it was like a week or two phase where she, or not phase, but transition, where she went back with her mom. And they were doing really well for the longest time. And I think that was just because her mom was under the microscope of the system, and she was following all the requirements. She was doing what she was supposed to. But then after they lifted all that stuff, her priorities just went all haywire and wonky. And my wife and I, even till this day, we write stuff down, what we see, what we hear, just document it all. Because if something does happen again, we just want to be ready, be like, hey, this is what we've seen, this is what we've heard, this is our witness, our statement for you about the situation. Because I'm sorry, I'm getting a little passionate over here. I love my oldest niece, but some of her choice actions are not the greatest, and it breaks my heart to see some of the things that is going on in her world, and that is affecting her kids. But her kids have such a great community and group around them, that they are safe. They're learning, they're fed, they're clothed, they have a warm place to stay. They're shown so much love, these little girls. But it's just sad that their mom has different priorities other than trying to strive and thrive for these little girls that she was given.
You know what? I hear a lot of what you're talking about is the uncertainty, and uncertainty is such a huge piece in the foster care system. Not only for us as a foster family, but most specifically for the kids in the middle of it all. It's such a challenge for the kids to deal with that uncertainty. I mean, I cannot imagine being 3, 4, 5 years old and being put in another home and having that thrust upon them in that way. It's a real challenge for the kids, but it's also a challenge for us, as you're trying to take care of a kid, because especially when you're being told that this is moving towards adoption and it's not, or it may not, because as I understand the system in Missouri, I have some decent experience with, and I would assume Colorado's probably the same, is that reunification is always the first goal. If we can get mom and dad to straighten their lives up and take care of a kid, and the kid grows up knowing that mom and dad loved them enough to take care of their stuff, that is the best possible solution for every kid. But when that's not a possibility, we have to find a different solution. And it's challenging for us to deal with watching somebody else walk through their stuff. And usually, not all the cases, but a vast majority, almost all the cases that me and Amanda have seen involve addiction. And there is no certainty in someone who is going through addiction. That's one of those things we've just seen flesh out time and time again. Addiction is a nasty monster, especially when you get into certain drugs. In my experience, I've seen that meth and heroin are two that will just steal your soul. And it takes away your ability to choose to be a parent. You get one opportunity to say no. And I'm not convinced you always have the second time. I'm not convinced you get the ability to say no that second choice, or the third, or the 15th, or the 30th. Because it just gets part of that brain chemistry where it grabs a hold of. It's such an addictive chemical that I don't know that we have that ability to say no at that point. And so we, as foster parents, are kind of held on the hook, just watching and hoping and waiting and trying to figure out what the future looks like for us. How did your wife and you deal with that as you went through those moments of uncertainty?
Well, a lot of prayer and a lot of talking it out, crying it out, speaking with really, really good friends and mentors that we have. And then even sometimes too, myself, with beer and alcohol, I every once in a while went swimming in that little lake of I'm just gonna drown I'm just gonna drown my sorrows in this bottle. But then also I was able to get out of that and recognize, hey, this isn't doing me any good. But yeah, and also just we dove into projects and other stuff just to try and cope what was going on, and just keeping that eye and that ear out for those girls. And we did have to distance ourselves for a little while from my family, from those girls. I had to delete the mom off Facebook and not even speak to her. Like, we'd have Christmas together or in holidays, but I couldn't say anything to her. And I don't know what she's going through and if she is on anything. I really don't know, and I really don't care to know, but I do want, there's a part of me that does want to know, just for the safety of those girls whenever the mom does have bug and her sisters. So yeah, it's just kind of that waiting game, just to wait and see. And we're really interested to see what's going to happen when school starts for bug, like for the immunizations and kindergarten and all that stuff. We're really interested to see. But also it's been good because we voiced those opinions to my sister, who's the grandma, and then my mom, who's the great grandma, about stuff like that. And they were like, oh, and thank God they're responsible enough to go ahead and think about and start planning for some of that stuff now. So, but yeah.
It sounds like, as much as there's some family struggles, it sounds like you guys have a fairly decent support network for those little girls inside the family and outside the family as well.
Those little girls are spoiled and taken care of. So,
well, spoiled's not always great, but sometimes
certain times, right?
Now, I did have this question though. As you guys went through it, did you have a good support network? Because that's an important part, is having a support network. That's something my wife and I have always struggled with a little bit. We don't have a whole lot of family connection, and we don't have a big friend group. We're so busy taking care of kids and life that, man, I can't tell you the last time we went out with friends. Did you have a good support network as you guys walk through this journey? Or do you still have that?
We do. My wife, her and her sisters and mom, they talk every day. And yeah, they talk every day. So they've got a nice knit support system. And when I was in the Dad's Edge Alliance, I had that. And through the Dad's Edge, I found 4 other guys, and we call ourselves the Hulks, and we constantly talk every week, whether it's just a, hey, what's up? How you guys doing? Or whether it's something very, very serious. And then I also have my brother, Anthony. Shameless plug for him. He's got Anthony's Godly Guidance podcast and Dashboard Pastor on Facebook, if you want to go check him out. I've got him and his family, and then also Pastor and his wife. And we have a good group of people who are there for us, and who are close enough to the situation and are able to see, so we get an outside perspective and stuff. But also when we need to just chill out and get our mind off a lot of this stuff, or even just vent, they're there for us. And I couldn't ask for a better support system.
Okay, well, I got to ask. I know the guys in the Dad's Edge, a lot of them, but there's 400 or so in there now. So who is the Hulks?
My boy Reggie Shaw. My boy
Reggie.
On the West Coast, Mr. Chris Eternio. Oh, he is Master Splinter. He's a wise, fun-loving dude. Mr. Tyler Matthews. Yeah, he's up in Oregon. Nice guy, a very nice guy. And then the other guy, he was in there like at the very beginning of Larry's journey with the Dad's Edge, and that would be shoot, I feel terrible. What is his name? Oh,
I put you on the spot.
But he's quiet a lot on there, so.
Well, I don't know Tyler, but the other 2 guys I do know, and it sounds like you're in good company there. And
Jeff Grantham. Yeah, Jeff Grantham. I was gonna say Jeremy Breberbad, okay, but yeah. I was like, no, wait. I love you.
Yeah, I remember Jeff. Yeah. And this podcast brought to you by the Dad's Edge Alliance. You know, we've talked about it quite a bit, you know, and if anybody's interested, I'll just go ahead and mention real quick. There's a podcast it was originally called the Good Dad Project, and then Larry changed the name of the podcast, and I can never say it right. Is it just the Dad's Edge?
The Dad's
Is that the name
Edge
of the podcast now? There you go. Okay. I always want to throw Alliance in there. I know that's wrong. But the Dad's Edge podcast, and I'll give Larry mad props because as we went through our own struggle, you know, we lost our daughter, our oldest daughter. We're almost coming up to the 5-year anniversary. And I did one of the things you mentioned. I dove into the bottle. And the difference is, you know, you'd have a few beers and maybe a few too many. I dove to the deep end, and I would pretty much regularly have one drink a night, but it was a 750 milliliter bottle of whiskey every night. I did that for close to a year, I would say. And that was, you know, I only did it 7 days a week. So, you know, I wasn't a real alcoholic, right? Just ask me. I'd tell you, I functioned just fine. And eventually figured out I wasn't so just fine. And around the time that I was deciding I needed to quit drinking, I'd stumbled across Larry's podcast, and he had Rory Fairbanks on there. Another guy who, I don't know if Rory has a podcast. I think he does. I think he has the 1 Year No Beer podcast.
Yeah, that definitely helped me out too. The 1 Year No Beer.
That was my first goal. Was I just decided I was going to go dry for a year, and you know, at the end of a year, decided I needed more than a year, so I had to make a bigger goal and decided 1,000 days, which 1,000 days ended last September for me. I think 2019, September 26th, I think was actually the date. And when I got to the end of that, my life had changed enough. I went, yeah, I don't think I want to go back. I'm not mad at somebody who has a beer. You know, if you can have a beer, good on you. I can't have a beer because if I do, I'll have a bottle of whiskey and it'll be empty, and I'll be trying to figure out where the rest of it went. So, you know, I jumped in that same place myself, and I did not have a community around me. You know, as you can imagine, we were going through some pretty heavy grief there. I had teenage kids who were, you know, teen suicide's a real thing. They just watched their daughter die. They were in a horrible place. My wife was struggling mightily, and I decided the only way for me to handle it was to just drink all that away. And it does a great job of killing your emotions. Kills all those negative emotions except for like anger and rage. Those tend to stay. But it got rid of a lot of the rest of them, and then it got rid of all the good emotions, and then I got really dark, and I realized it was time for me to step aside and put the alcohol away. And I haven't been back because it was just so bad for me, because I did not have any kind of a group of people around me at that time. You know, my dad had just passed away just before our daughter got sick. So I literally, as he was coming home on hospice, she was going into the hospital for her beginning of her journey into her disease. So, you know, I struggled with that, and without having a community around me. So, you know, you mentioned your faith and being close with your pastor. I can only imagine that has to have had a big impact on how and why you guys went into this journey the way that you did.
Yeah, we couldn't find anybody to take the little one, so they offered. They're like, hey, yeah, we'll take her, and it was a beautiful thing because they built that relationship with that little girl and instilled so much hope and like positivity and the gospel and good news and just so much love into this little girl. And like you can still see it to this day. And also our relationship with him and his wife, my wife and his wife they do workouts together now, and they talk at least once or twice a week. And me and him, we started a young men's group for our church. So just building that relationship is what was key, man.
Were you guys active in your church before that?
Yeah, we were pretty active. My wife and I, we were helping the youth group. We were youth leaders. And then I had to take a step back because of some other personal issues that I had, but my wife continued doing the youth group, and it's funny because we had a helpers and volunteer appreciation dinner, and they gave out little awards just for fun. And my wife, she came home with the most. She just engulfed herself in volunteering and helping out and serving, and everybody kind of gave her a hard time, but it was really, really cool. And I took the step back just so I can handle more stuff at home. But now, again, before all this pandemic happened, we were going every Sunday morning and setting up chairs, setting up sound equipment, because we meet at a school. So we were getting just everything set up. And before, we thought it was such a chore. And I'm like, I really don't want to go do this. This sucks, blah, 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 whining and complaining. But then with this whole pandemic, I'm sitting here, I was like, I really miss going and setting up chairs and having those conversations, those really great conversations with people and laughing and hugging and all this stuff. So this pandemic has definitely opened our eyes to be like, hey, to be a little bit more grateful for the opportunities that we get to serve our church and the opportunities that we get to have those conversations and build those relationships, so we don't fall into the pits of when something happens or some traumatic happens and we do fall into that bottle, or we fall into whatever addiction or habit that we were in before, like a dog returning to its vomit. We have the accountability and those relationships to hold above water, and I praise God that we have those.
Well, that's good, because that's one of the things that I see make a lot of situations the most successful is when you have a support group to lean in on, because God knows we all need a support group.
Amen, man.
Well, it's been great talking to you, Ryan. Do you have anything else, any parts of your journey that you really want to make sure that you share, or have you told your story?
I believe I shared what needed to be shared for right now, and I did pray about this before I got on here with you, and just asked God to allow me to share what needs to be said right now. So, and I thank you guys so much for the opportunity to have me on to just to share and hang out with you guys on this beautiful Sunday morning.
Yeah, we enjoy spending some time here talking about your journey, and we're just grateful that there's people out there who are willing to step outside of their comfort zone and take care of kids that need to be taken care of in moments of high need. Put aside your own struggles and move forward for what's best for the kids, because that's at the end of the day the person who's going to take care of our healthcare decisions. That's at the end of the day the person who's going to make our Social Security decisions. So we need to make sure that we're raising good kids so that they don't they don't end up putting us somewhere we don't want to be put.